Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Wealthy Dentist Podcast. I'm your host, Ward Powell. And if you're a dentist looking to crack the code on how to grow your practice and dominate in this space, then stick around. You're in the right place. Every week, we're sitting down with some amazing dentists who are doing incredible things in their businesses. We're talking about everything from how they keep their teams loyal and dedicated to how they stay ahead of the game in this crazy, fast-changing industry. You'll hear about hacks like using virtual assistants to free up your time, strategies to make more sales with less effort, and even mind-blowing stories about patents and inventions that are changing the industry as we know it. And it's not just about growing your practice, it's also about finding out what works from a clinical perspective. Whether you're just starting or you're ready to scale to the next level, there's something here for you. So buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive in.
You don't have to be insanely busy to make money. I graduated school in 1982, started working in 83, and I retired at the end of 2022, 40 years practice. When you work by yourself, dentistry can be a very isolating position. For established dentists, workforce is always a challenge now because since COVID, we had a lot of hygienists leave the profession.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rudy Liddell, for coming in and joining us at the Wealthy Dentist Podcast. We appreciate you coming in and speaking to us. And I know as I read a little about you, you started out, as a military man and then went into engineering. You did that and said, oh man, I'm bored. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to go to school and become a dentist. Can you tell me all about that little piece of history right there?
Well, when I was recruited in college, I was recruited as a swimmer. So the university or the United States Military Academy, the coach invited me up and I toured the campus at West Point and decided to go there. I would say that 95% of the graduates from West Point have an engineering background, and I certainly had that. But I befriended the base dentist during my sophomore year, and I shadowed him for several times and talked to him about a career in dentistry and if he liked it. And he said he loved it. You know, I was always very skilled with my hands, always built models as a child. And so I started exploring a pathway to get to dental school. And as it turned out, the West Point had changed a policy when I was a sophomore that they wouldn't send anybody to professional school until they did their initial 5-year commitment. And I was honest with myself, and I didn't think that I would go back to school after a 5-year absence. So I separated from the military academy, and I finished up my education at University of South Florida. And again, I just took out a catalog and I said, what is my easiest or my shortest degree track? And because I had such an engineering background at West Point, I decided to do engineering at University of South Florida. And all my electives were things like organic chemistry, biology, cell biology, analytical chemistry. So had I not gotten into dental school, I'd have probably been a chemical engineer.
Oh, okay. All right. I see. And so you had this mentor that kind of got you into dentistry. So you did dentistry for how long now?
Okay, I graduated school in 1982, started working in 83, and I retired at the end of 2022, 40 years practice.
Absolutely. 40 years of practice, but between that, there was a lot being done. You worked in many council member, FDA, all right. I mean, so like an advisor with the FDA and all kinds of different administrative positions that you had throughout your career. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of those council member positions that you had?
That's interesting, Ward. When I first opened my own practice, I opened as a solo practitioner, and I had a small practice. I had 4 staff members. They were all female, and I used to go to the local meetings as just a way to network with other dentists and other guys. And one time there was an opening that came available, and somebody approached me and said, hey, do you want to run for this office? I said, well, what's involved? And he says, well, you're doing most of it now. You're just showing up. And I said, okay. So that was a 6 year position to get to be president of the Hillsborough County Dental Association. And then after I finished up that, I was approached by the component, and they said, hey, you did a great job as president. Would you like to serve on the West Coast line? And I said, sure. And we did that. And towards the end of that, I served on the Florida Dental Association's Council on Financial Affairs. And I chaired that committee for 2 years. And I also, at that time, started serving as a trustee to the Florida Dental Association. And then back in 2015, we needed a new line officer for the state. And they asked me if I wanted to do that. And I said, yeah, I do. And so I went through that. And of course, my presidential year was COVID. And so that had its own set of challenges, but we worked through that. I also, at that time, was serving on the ADA's Council on Dental Practice, and I chaired that again. My chair year was COVID. I co-chaired the COVID response task group from the ADA, which developed the Back to Work Toolkit. So I was really busy during COVID, but I loved my leadership experiences. After I finished up with the FDA presidency, I actually became the trustee from the state of Florida to the ADA. So that's a 4 year commitment. And I threw my name in the ring for president-elect of the ADA. I wasn't successful at that, but it was a heck of an experience.
Right, I'm sure. I mean, like everything that you that saw and you felt that you had an idea that you wanted to get involved, you did. I mean, you just got in there. That's awesome. So, when you were working as a solo practitioner, what prompted you to go in as a group? And before that, just tell me about that experience.
Well, one of the things, and I try to tell young dentists this, dental students and young graduates, when you work by yourself, dentistry can be a very isolating position. Isolating position, because you're your own little island with your own little team members, and it can get lonely. It really can get lonely because everything falls onto your shoulders. I had a very good friend who practices in Ocala, Florida, who was part of a group, and he actually had met one of my future partners at a financial planners retreat for the group that he was using. And I had a situation where I had a disagreement with the landlord, and the landlord evicted me, and I didn't have anywhere to go. And so he said, well, you need to reach out to Dan and find out, because I think they're looking for another partner. So I did, and we had lunch together with all the partners, and I told them what my goals and ambitions were, and asked about their practice, and we seemed to be a good fit. And so I merged my practice in with their practice. The two partners at that time, the older partners, were both 59. I was like 30, 35. And then throughout the years, they retired in 98, and I hired probably 6 people in the meantime. Some of them didn't work out, but the group that's there now, the core group has been together since 2001. And we just recently, I say recently, it was actually 2020, incorporated a new partner into the practice. And that partner was a young man who I helped get into dental school, and he was actually a patient of mine since he was 8 years old. So it was like the circle of life thing.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And so, so you went off into you felt that you were on an island. You decided to say, hey, you know what? Working with a couple other dentists might be a good idea. I mean, at least we get an opportunity to talk about what we're doing from a clinical perspective, and then other ideas that may come into the fray of business. How did that work? The business part of putting.
Well, it was all contractually determined. We had our practice divided up into profit centers. One profit center was hygiene. and other profit centers were the production of the individual dentist. And so the way that the purchase worked, it was called a hygiene leverage buyout or a buy-in. And so when we hired a new person, when their production got up to the point where they felt comfortable buying a percentage of the practice, they would buy a percentage of the hygiene profit. And so if they had 20% of the practice, they would get 20% of the hygiene profit. And then that amount of money would service their debt. So it was really like it was free money, basically. They didn't notice a drop in income because what they were buying was a means to pay their debt.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, business-wise, if we could stay on this subject, um, I mean, how did you manage to balance your business and your practice at the same time?
Well, I think what's really important, Ward, we had three partners to four partners that all graduated from the same dental school. So we all had the same practice philosophy. And one of the things that's nice about being in a small group is you have economies of scale. So when you have to buy a major piece of equipment that say $30,000, rather than $30,000 to one person, it's $7,500 to four different people. And so by keeping an eye on our numbers, our overhead, we managed to run our practice for most of the years that I worked at between 48 and 52% overhead. And when you can do that, you don't have to be insanely busy to make money.
Mm, mm. So,
And one other thing we did is because we had such a cool practice, we were able to hire very, very good team members. And we let the team members run their individual areas of expertise. So I didn't go up and constantly hound the front desk ladies about anything. I just let them do their thing. We let the assistants do their thing. We empowered one assistant to do inventory control. So when you take a lot of that off your plate, it makes your life a lot easier, a lot more pleasant.
so it was four of you, right? Oh,
Yes.
okay. So how many hygienists did you have in that group?
When I retired, we had eight.
Oh,
So not all of them worked full time, but some of them worked 3 days a week, some of them worked 4 days. We had a couple that worked 5 days a week, but we had four hygiene chairs and we had 5 work days, and we had four hygienists every day.
so did you what? I mean, how many operatories did you have?
We had 12 total.
Okay.
So we did a lot of split scheduling. So for instance, on Tuesdays, I worked from 7 to 1. And on Thursday, I worked from 1 to 7. And then there'd be another doctor working opposite me. So we always had coverage Monday through Friday. But I think when I was working the most, I was working 34 hours a week. And then when I dropped Fridays, it was about 28 hours a week.
Hmm. 38 hours. I'm not working 40. I'm close to it, but
The 28 hours was kind of nice.
I'm sure the golf course can come, right? Which I obviously gave you an opportunity to do some of the work you did on the administrative side, I would assume.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have partners.
Yes, yes. Okay. And so did with respect to the partners, was everybody general dentists or were there specialists within your group? I mean, how did that work?
We were all general dentists.
Okay, okay. And then anybody that did any kind of like implanting or anything like that, or was that something that you all were looking at that particular?
It's kind of a funny thing, and I think we'll touch on this later in some of the talk.
time?
I had really wanted to take an implant course,
Uh-huh.
but when I started looking, I guess I started exploring this about 2011 or 12, and at that time I was only probably referring out about 2 dozen implants a year.
Okay.
And so it never made financial sense to invest a lot of money and in a lot of equipment in the training that it would take. And so I kind of put that on hold. And of course, by the time I retired, I was probably referring out 50 to 60 a year, which would have made it, plenty profitable. But
Right.
by then I was like, I'm going to be retiring in a year. I don't need to go spending, 40, $50,000 to get it set up for implants. So I always regretted that. But yeah, that's one of the advice I gave to the young partner. I said, Dan, learn to do implants because it's most of them are pretty simple to place, and there's a lot of patients don't like leaving the practice to go to a specialist, especially if you can do it in office. So that's the advice I gave him.
Yes, and I think I would say that was great advice. We do have a Dr. Julia L. Jackson who's actually teaching implantology. She's maxillofacial um, dentist up in Virginia. So
Okay.
if that's somebody that I mean, or if you know of someone that's trying to do something like that and they want to take that trip, she's doing a really good job there in Virginia with that particular piece. And of course, I'm sure there are places in I think I think it was Arizona that has this really nice school where they actually teach implantology there as well. I can't remember the school, though. You might know.
Well, there's a couple around here too. Michael Picos is probably 30 miles away. And
Okay.
then there's a gentleman named Aaron Garg down in Miami that also has a course. So
Okay.
they're available.
Oh, okay. Good. 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 So, what would you say was some of your main challenges as a dentist when you're going through your career?
Ward, I can honestly say this. I love dentistry. I don't think there was ever a day that I woke up to an alarm that I said, oh crap, I got to go into the office. Every day I woke up, I said, I have an opportunity to go into the office and do good. Um, I think if you said, what's the challenge? The challenge is to strike a balance between work, family, recreation, and, giving back. We just got back this weekend from a Mission of Mercy over in Daytona Beach. And it always makes you, wears you out, but it just makes you feel so good that you're able to help people. But I think the balance is probably the most challenging part. And I always tell my young partner, if you ever feel like anxiety that you can't quite identify, look to see what's out of balance. You might be working too hard. You may be playing too hard. You may be spending too much time with your family. You may not be spending enough time with your family. But just kind of look at it from that perspective. And I think when you find a balance, it makes everything a lot easier in life.
Excellent suggestion. I've never really thought of it that way, but that's yeah, you give great advice there. Um, how about some of the up and coming challenges with the future? I mean, with the DSOs and
Well, you
street.
know,
What are your thoughts about that?
I think probably the biggest challenge for the young dentists and the graduating dental students is dental student debt. They're facing like an onslaught of increasing debt, and I don't see it slowing down. Uh,
Mm,
and I just saw some statistics where I think they just raised the tuition at NYU to 100 the tuition to $113,000 a year. That doesn't cover living expenses. So they're going to be graduating with probably $600,000 worth of debt. And when you start to amortize that over 20 years at 5%, you're looking at a $2,650 payment. That's on 400,000. If you go to 600,000, you're probably looking closer to $3,300 a month. And that's just something that is going to be a challenge. For established dentists, workforce is always a challenge now because since COVID, we had a lot of hygienists leave the profession. Uh, and it seems, and I hate making generalizations, but it seems that people in this upcoming generation want they want to be paid a lot, but they don't want to do a lot. And so getting a motivated employee is tough. And then the biggest challenge, and I say this across the board, is third-party payers. Since COVID, uh, expenses for a dental office have exploded, and every year the third-party payers, the dental insurers, are cutting our benefits. They're denying services, and so that's a huge challenge. And again, dental insurance is a misnomer. It's not really insurance. It's just a benefit.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, and I can't tell you how many times over my career they would say, "Well, I would do it if I had dental insurance." And it's like, dental insurance doesn't cover that much. At the time, it may have been $1,200, $1,500.
Mhm.
Um, and back in the day when they had a $1,500 benefit and we were charging $500 for a crown, if you did 6 crowns up front, the insurance would pay half of it. Now the crowns are $1,500. You can do 1 crown and they'll pay half of it. The benefit, the plan maximums haven't increased over the years. So that's a huge obstacle for anybody in practice. And I hope and I believe what'll happen is they'll start looking at some alternatives to traditional third-party payers, and hopefully that will be a little bit more fair to the patients and to the doctors. Uh, Insurance companies don't have to be making billions of dollars off of premiums without providing an equal number of dollars in services. So that's going to be a big fight for the next couple of years.
I totally agree. So with that said, and the problems that brings, how would you say that technology would help defray some of the problems that dentists will have as they deal with these third-party insurance companies and such?
Well, I think what's really exciting, and we're just on the precipice right now, is artificial intelligence in dentistry. There are a couple of big players in the space right now, Overjet and Pearl, and their software is so good. And what I envision is the more information you can provide for the insurance companies. Say if you have, the standard would be a set of periapical X-rays, but if you could also provide a CBCT scan, so that when AI runs, the course of diagnosis over these images, there's no denials because the insurance company won't be able to say, "Well, I don't see that." They have programs now that are charting periodontal depths. So when you have a patient that comes in and the charting gets thrown up on the screen and they can be shown areas of bone loss, that's a no-brainer. They say they can see it visually, and most people are visual learners. And plus, the insurance companies won't be able to deny that. They can't say, "Well, that we don't see enough disease there." It'll be in black and white. So I'm really excited about everything that artificial intelligence can bring to the dental office, and also the digital workflow stuff. And that's one of the things I wish I had another 10 or 15 years in the profession, because I'm kind of a tech geek like that. And the digital workflow and 3D printers and milling machines, it just, I would love to get involved with that. But I think that's going to be standard in the next probably 10 years. Everybody will be able to do same-day crowns, placing implants with guides that they print in their office. It's exciting. It really is exciting.
I, I would concur because I mean, like, yeah, I mean, and the thing of it is, unfortunately, I don't know. Well, I just think a lot of people don't realize how great this is right now. This is a great time right now,
Oh,
and
it's
a lot of different practices. But I would say dentistry should be and will be based on what you just said. Some of the happiest, like exciting times that they can possibly have in the field. I mean, you can expedite the process by using this equipment, and you can basically lay it out to the dentist. I mean, I'm sorry, to the insurance companies, and there's no, like you said, there's no denial. So what's the problem? Let's move on.
Right.
Let's keep this moving. So what other ideas that you could share with us in that particular area? Any others?
None that come to mind. I think that patients they're starting to educate themselves more by looking up uh, things online, and I hope that doesn't go the wrong way because I know that one of the things that was in the news recently, even around here, were what they called veneer techs.
Yeah.
And people want to they if they're only worried about price and they go to somebody who's not trained, that could be something that
Disaster.
is damaging. And if dental procedures are done by unlicensed individuals, it could spill over and give dentistry a bad name.
Mm.
So we have to be ever vigilant on that. And also, we're currently fighting the mid-level providers, the dental therapists here in Florida. They've had legislation passed in about 9 states right now. And one of the false promises of dental therapy is that it's going to address our access to care problem. But the way the legislation is written, a dental therapist has to practice under the supervision, direct supervision. The dentist has to be on site. And if there's not a dentist in a dental shortage area, then you can't send a dental therapist to that same area. So we're battling that. We have some alternative things that we're suggesting. And so I think that we need to protect the profession from the dental therapist.
You know,
That's my opinion.
how easy you can flow from the dental piece or your dental clinical background to an engineering background. And then, you put on your administrative hat. This is great. This is just wide open kind of information. I feel very fortunate to have you here to speak about, all of these different areas. So I would assume that what you just gave us was from the administrative side of what you do have done throughout your career.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I've spent a lot of time in Tallahassee and a lot of time in Washington.
Yeah, I can imagine how busy that can very well get. And so, how is the fight? How is the fight going in Washington? How long does it take one to like really, um, know that they're winning? I mean, so that the future of dentistry is not, or certain areas of, because there's so many areas, but certain areas that you are protecting. How soon do you all get an idea of, yeah, this is going to be like really, really like protected, and we don't have to worry about that anytime in the near future?
Well, it's been my experience, Ward, that things happened at the state level a lot more efficiently than they happen at the national level. And we're very fortunate in Florida. We have an outstanding lobbyist who's been with us for 17 years. She has made great relationships with a lot of the legislators, and she basically says, "Hey, I want to be your resource. So anything dental comes across your desk, pick up the phone and give me a call, and I'll talk to you about it, and I'll kind of let you know where we stand." Unfortunately, in Washington, the process is a whole lot slower. I remember we had fought for years to get the McCarran-Ferguson legislation overturned, and it seemed like it probably took us 8 years to do that. And and the most disappointing thing is once we finally won the battle, we really haven't seen a lot of results that we can hang our hat on and say, "See what we did? We got this overturned, and now everything is great." It's like we got it overturned, and things are pretty much the same. They'll
Oh,
change. They will change, but it's going to take time. And then that's just one of the frustrations of dealing with national government.
Yeah, yeah. So have you thought about, or have you wrote a book about all or some of your experiences as a dentist administrator, engineering? I know you bring in all of that information to uh, to someone's attention in a book. Have you done that yet, or have you thought about possibly putting?
That's really not something that I've thought about. And
Mhm.
again, maybe it's the humility. Maybe I just do what I do because I love what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. You love what you do. I mean, like, it would just seem the next step would be let's talk about it. I want to tell the people how it was, approaching you and talking to you about this. How you were like, oh, well, I mean, but you have so much to say. You have so much to give us. I really appreciate you taking the time and giving us this. So, what have we not spoke about that you like to let people know about at this point?
You know, basically the title of your podcast, The Wealthy Dentist,
Thank you
some
so
some maybe pearls on how to achieve financial freedom.
much. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I a couple of things that I always say is hire somebody that can help you. Hire a good financial planner, preferably somebody who is associated with a good accountant. And that way together they can roadmap you on how you're going to fund this, how you're going to fund your plan. I remember after I joined this group, the two older partners were members of a financial planning group out in Dallas. And they said, we want you to be a client. And I said, okay. And I remember my first meeting with one of the partners. He said, I think the first 5 years that I was in practice, I managed to save about $20,000 in a SEP IRA. And my first meeting with Mike, he went through all my stuff and he said, "Okay, I want you to save $35,000 to invest in your pension plan." And I just was my jaw dropped and I'm like, "How am I ever going to do that?" And he says, "We're going to show you." And between the tax advantages of saving in a qualified pension plan and committing to it. And I think that's the most important thing is if you're working with a financial professional, you have to have somebody who's going to hold you accountable. Everybody always hears this thing, pay yourself first. That doesn't mean emptying your account at the end of the month for play money. For me, it was I always funded, and it was automatically. I always funded my pension plan first. That was the first check that I wrote. And then, I would do a employer match in August. And then when I started making more money, they said, okay, now we're going to put your wife on your payroll in your PA, and we're going to do the same thing for her. And so it became automatic. And I met with them once a year, and they held me to account. They said, okay, you put this much in, you have enough to put in this time? I said, yeah, I do. And they go, great. And when you understand the time value of money, which a lot of people don't, a lot of people get hung up on the opposite, the downward spiral of the time value of interest, and that can bury you. But if you commit to it, you don't have to look for home runs, as I like home, stupid investments that people promise you, 15x on your money, and you happily write a check and you lose all your money. I'm always of the thing is, get rich slow.
That's right.
Just keep investing, keep investing. Um, Other thing is live within your means.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Stay married. You don't want to get to be 50 years old and have to give away half your stuff. Uh, Teach your children the value of money. That was thing probably of all the things that I've done, Ward, I think the thing that my wife and I are most proud of is that we didn't spoil our boys. We have two boys, uh, and you could have, because I grew up in a lower middle class family, and there were a lot of things I wish I had when I was growing up. but I resisted the temptation to provide them with everything. And now they're both successful in their own right. And unfortunately, I see some of my colleagues who have children that are dependent on them. So not only are they planning to retire someday, they may never because they have adult children that they're supporting. And I think, and I have to say this because I read it and heard two people say it in the last 2 weeks. Don't let comparison be the thief of joy.
That's right.
Because no matter what level of life you are, there's always somebody that has more.
Absolutely.
And so uh, figure out what makes you happy and pursue that. Don't pursue somebody else's dreams
Yes.
because you you can get caught up in the chase and never experience the joy.
Excellent. Excellent. You know, I think about what you said, and very easily I can definitely say that some of what you expressed sounds like a book I read some time back called The Millionaire Next Door. You know, we have to be frugal
Yeah.
because if we don't, there's going to be some kind of problem.
Well, and again, because and I was my financial planner asked me when I first got there, when do you want to retire? And I said 65. And they said, okay, this is what you're going to need to accumulate in order to do that. I remember going in when I turned 50 and they said, you still want to retire at 65? I said, yes. And they said, well, you probably ought to refinance your house for 15 years. I said, okay, went and did that. Um, my wife and I were lucky enough that one of our, and again, this because we have such a great relationship, one of our happy places is the beach. And we committed early on that at some point we were going to own a beachfront condo. And that dream came true in 2003. And so and the beach is our happy place. So when I was working 4 days a week, we would leave Thursday afternoon and drive to the beach and spend 3 days at the beach and then come home. It was like a mini vacation every weekend. And that again, that kept me grounded and it kept me revitalized and just looking forward to the next week. And again, I didn't buy a palatial place. I just bought a place that, had a bed and a place to cook, and I can see the beach right outside my window. But it's I've never been one to spend a lot of money on depreciable assets. I just need dependable transportation. I don't have a boat. All these money pit things.
Yes. Yes.
So, and again, I think that's where a lot of people make mistakes is, their friend buys an expensive car, so they think they need to buy an expensive car. Or, their friends move into an exclusive neighborhood. They think they need to move into an exclusive neighborhood. And that's where that comparison is the thief of joy.
Absolutely.
Because, and again, you never know anybody's financial picture from what is shown externally. And you may be chasing somebody who inherited family money. Maybe they inherited $10 million, but they're still just a dentist. And you're thinking, well, I know he's not any busier than I am. So if he can afford it, I can afford it. But you don't know that he inherited $10 million. So again, that's just my advice. And like I told you on our phone call, I am more pragmatic than dogmatic. I know these all things that work for me. And if I can give in the podcast, if somebody can take away one or two little things that they say, wow, I've never thought of it that way, I'll think that I've done some good.
Absolutely. You have. And thank you so much for joining us and giving us a real great snapshot of what it takes to have a wonderful career. I mean, throughout, as a solo practitioner, as a team member with the group, and then as an administrator throughout your career, you've been very busy, and then still had time to go to the beach. That's great. That's great. So do you still have the beach house?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
we're gonna probably go over there this weekend.
Okay, okay. Good. So is it the same kind of scheduling that you guys have?
You know, it's it's kind of funny. We spend some time over here in our at our main house in Brandon. Uh, my wife belongs to a Pilates studio, and she likes to, do Pilates 3 or 4 times a week. I'm part of the Rotary Club, so we have our meetings on Tuesday afternoon. Uh, I go to the gym a couple of days a week, and you know, it's kind of funny because now we don't have to always think the Thursday through Sunday thing. Sometimes we can go Friday to Tuesday
Mm-hmm.
or Monday to Thursday, and that's to me that's what's been so nice about retirement is, because I did all those little things I said throughout my career.
Mm-hmm.
I've basically replaced my income through my investments. And so of all the things I worry about, money isn't one of them.
Wow. That's a very important statement. And if no one gets anything out of this conversation, that's a statement that should stick for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
If I was to have a problem with anything right now, money is not one of them. I mean, plan and plan well throughout your career. That's great. So thank you so much, Doc, for coming in and speaking with us and giving us this wonderful information. If somebody wanted to just ask a few questions of you, whether it's email or you have a number they can call to just discuss some of the things that you may have shared with them today.
Yeah, I would be happy to share my email address. And then, if somebody has a specific question, they can put their telephone number in there and I'd be happy to give them a call. Again, just in the subject line, put the Wealthy Dentist podcast and I'll know who it, what it refers to.
Yes.
And we'll take care of that.
Okay. So what would be the email address they would use?
It's the number 2 TH Gator at AOL.com. And if you sound that out, it's a tooth gator at AOL.com. I went to the University of Florida. My Gators are still in the tournament.
Okay.
Looking good. Looking good. But yeah, if you email me, I would be happy to respond.
That's awesome. Thanks again, Dr. Liddell, for spending time with us today. We really appreciate you coming through today.
It was my pleasure, Ward. Thank you for having me on.
The Wealthy Dentist podcast is built on connections, opportunities, and meaningful conversations that help jumpstart careers and boost the ROI on your business. Is there a topic you're passionate about or someone in the dental community who should share their story with us? We want to hear from you. Email your suggestions to the Wealthy Dentist Podcast at gmail.com and let's create content that informs, inspires, and uplifts the dental world. Your ideas could spark our next big conversation. Let's make it happen. I'm Ward Powell, your host at the Wealthy Dentist Podcast, thanking you for being a part of our journey.